All right, I got some stuff about, we've talked about it before, the heart, the spirit, and the soul. Okay, so I can't remember what you said, but we were talking about where the mind is, right? And I think you said the mind is in the spirit, correct?
No, it would.
Or the soul?
It would be the soul, yeah.
And the mind and the heart are the same thing.
But the will and the mind and the emotions is in the soul, right?
You know what? The heart is like, we're right on talking about, the heart would be like the combo. It'd be like your inner man. It would be like the combination of your spirit and soul. It would be like that inner man.
Because it says in Romans 8, Romans 2:29.
Right. Of the heart and the spirit?
Of the heart and the spirit.
Yeah.
And then there's the Romans 1:24.
Before God gave them up, cleansed to the lust of their own heart.
That's not what I was looking for, but hang on. 1:24.
I would say, Mark, the way the Bible, your spirit, a soul, and a body. Well, you're a soul that has a spirit and a body. How God said, man became a living soul. This unit here, we call that inward, that inner, or the inward man. These together, I would say, would make up what we know as the heart. It's like the Bible talks about the heart of the earth. It's the inner part of the earth. He'll talk about, if you just look up the word heart there, the heart of the earth. He says, as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so shall the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth. In the Bible, the heart is like the inner part, the inward part. I'd say, so this inward man would be your heart. In other words, as opposed to your outward man, right inside, it would be those together. That's why he would say the spirit of your mind.
So Romans 8:27, and he that searcheth the hearts knoweth what is in the mind of the Spirit.
Well, that's the Spirit of God there.
Because he maketh intercession.
Yeah, that's the Spirit of God there.
Because when we talk about, I'm basically like, I'm trying to just wrap my
I'd
mind
say
around
heart is your inner man.
the heart. Yeah, the components of our mind and our heart.
Well, check this out. Jeremiah 19:5. You know the verse where it says, "They have built also the high places of Baal to burn their sons with fire for burnt offerings unto Baal, which I commanded not, nor spake it, neither came it into my mind." And then you got Jeremiah 7:31 where it says it again, but it says, "Neither came it into my heart." So the heart and the mind are the same thing.
Okay, I can now.
But then you got the other verse which says, the Lord says, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul, with all thy strength.
Okay, but so, yeah, and
So
and,
it's like this combination of the inward man. Go ahead.
So I guess what I'm getting at, and I agree, because I heard if
God is
like, okay, well, what's our mind? We know we have a conscious mind and like an unconscious mind and a subconscious mind. And it seems like when we're...
that thing is what lives forever. That's part of your soul. That's part of the mechanics of your soul.
Because it seems like you were talking about it today, our heart is soft. We want to keep our heart soft. Because when things act on us, it seems like our subconscious mind is the part that reacts. It's not like conscious.
Reactionary, yes. Or it could just be your flesh, too.
Sure.
That's the
It could
component
just
of
be
humanity, yeah. You just want to beat the hell out of somebody.
But the flesh can react that way because of a heart issue.
Yeah,
Ultimately,
exactly.
right? So you keep your heart
Soft.
soft, you're not going to have that fleshly
Exactly.
reaction.
That's what Paul talks about. How, by the way, part of the mechanics we're going to see is how prayer, just not even in this study right here in these papers, is how does prayer help us defeat the power of the flesh, because it does have an impact on it.
And the same,
Prayer does on how our flesh, it tempers our flesh.
keeping your heart soft is like the same as not becoming bitter. Right?
Exactly.
But would you agree that like our emotions were that's all connected? Like you're saying, the soul, the spirit, the mind. It's all the inner.
What we call emotion. Yeah, your affections and stuff. Yeah, that would be your soul. The Bible calls
I'm just
affections.
curious
And your
about
personality,
Yeah, personality. All that.
likes, dislikes.
So I have a question about that part there. So when you born in Adam, where's the spirit part? Because you're supposed
Same.
to be dead in the spirit, so you just abide in.
They're just being separated from God. That's all.
Okay.
It's not like you don't have animation. You just separate from God.
Or ability to communicate.
Right.
That's what
You
spirit
just-
is too.
You just have no part with God
Spirit is the
until
Right, the
the Spirit of God.
communication.
And then what happens is that see, there's the little graph there, that little line between the body and the soul, that becomes spiritually circumcised.
Right, exactly. That
Baptized
that
into
gets cut
Christ.
away.
So then the flesh doesn't have free reign connection
Also, that
access
soul and spirit kind of
to
like.
get separated from that flesh, so we're able
That's our
to-
circumcision,
That's the
Colossians 2.
circumcision, yeah.
So
okay.
now the
That makes
flesh,
sense now.
even though it still has
Access.
access, it doesn't have dominion over
Right,
us.
exactly.
Let's say it like this: through sanctification, it has less and less power.
And apart from that, if that circumcision wasn't made, then we wouldn't have the ability to defend against the flesh, because it'd be just like interconnected like that. And has,
It literally cuts
Power.
off the flesh. Yeah.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, so that gives us stability to say no.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
really
But would you
mean- I
say
really mean no, so stop leaving me alone. Yeah.
that are
What we're going to see is both prayer and the word help facilitate you saying no.
Yeah.
It's power in both of those things. Go ahead.
so? Would you say that our like subconscious mind and our unconscious mind, that's part of the heart?
I would say it's part of the heart. Sure, it's part of our inward man. Those are things that go on the inside of man. Yeah.
You know, Romans
Even when you
1:21.
dream and all that stuff and seem real and you doing stuff, you're yourself in there, but all type of. I was having a dream that it was the craziest dream. It was so real because I was being myself. I was like, no, I can't do that. It's just what the word said. It was all inside of me, even though it was a dream. That was my subconscious. I was asleep, but the thing was still going. It was very active, like I was alive, like I was awake. Yeah.
Well, it's just so crazy that inside of us, we like create worlds in our dream. It's
Sure.
just the craziest.
Oh, it's crazy because your dreams are so nutty. Even though they seem so real at the time, you just like, you wake up and say, there's no way, you know what, that would be something that I would be it's crazy, it's nuts. It'd be stuff, somebody from your grade school you haven't seen in 25 years or something. It's just crazy stuff.
What about I think
That
something
stuff
else
is
about
all
it.
in you, it just comes out in these dreams, yeah. People you haven't even thought about in 25 years, and you have an intimate conversation with a friend from 5th grade or something, it's crazy.
Revelation, is it 18 where it's talking about trading the souls of man?
It could be maybe 18, 30. We can look that up. Let's see.
Are they like trading parts of the mind here?
I think this is just talking about just men in general.
Because if we're saying the soul is the inner part of the man,
I see what you're saying. I don't think I'm with Ryan. I don't think they're just talking about just the different, somehow they access their consciousness.
It is interesting that the word slaves is in there, and slaves and souls of men, because I would think that those would be synonymous in the usage here, but there seems to be two different words for a reason, I guess.
Yeah, it's in order. Beast and sheep and horses and chariots and slaves.
It's the only time the word slaves is ever used.
what are you thinking of this word slaves? What it means in this context?
Well, just what it means throughout the scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
Just
You're a slave to
you got complete control over them, and they.
I wonder if the souls of men would be like brainwashing. People that are basically brainwashed zealots or whatever that do what you say, not because by their own choice.
Not because you use physical
compelling.
force
Right.
to keep them down,
Right.
but that you controlling them. Mind control,
Psychologically.
like mind control
Right.
and stuff, yeah.
Right.
Which in our day right now, it can happen.
Sure.
It can happen with the technology we have.
Right.
It can happen,
And with,
Well,
and
it
with
can happen.
or
programming.
just through propaganda and
Yeah.
stuff, or even
Right.
like books, like the
Yeah.
Quran and different
Right.
stuff. Think about these guys who go and blow themselves. Like their soul has been controlled by what these imam, and the
Right.
book of these imam, and yeah, they just souls. Think about souls of men, because what happened when these guys died? Their souls perish. When I say perish, they can go to hell.
Yeah, so it's like the slave would be
Yeah.
somebody who's being compelled by force. The
Force.
souls of men are doing it on their own will because they're being duped.
Yes, yeah,
Well,
and that's
what-
part of their merchandise. Yeah.
Well, I think about, like, we talked about people who don't have the emotional capacity to get the word.
When you say the emotional capacity, what you mean?
They can't emotionally, they're not emotionally, they've been so damaged emotionally that they have so much trauma that their minds can't receive it.
But the Word of God goes deeper than that.
I'm not saying it
It goes to the
won't or
dividing the
it
soul.
can't.
It says the soul and spirit in Hebrews 4. God works in your spirit, and that thing. Notice that says souls of men, but it doesn't say anything about spirit. Nothing's going to stop God from getting His word into man if man wants it.
But man has to want it. That's the key.
I'm not saying it
So it
can't or
can
won't.
penetrate to the spirit.
But we were talking, Ryan. I may not be articulating this correctly,
Yeah.
but like certain people, they're not emotionally capable
Sure not.
of.
You were talking about mentally, like they have a mental incapacity.
Sure, mental.
Now that's a
little different.
legit. That's legitimate. That someone can have the mental capacity of us.
Right, like you can be like a full-grown person and get into a car accident, and then all of a sudden not be able to tie your shoes and
Oh, yeah.
can't
I used
speak.
to
right?
drive mentally and physically handicapped people around. One guy, he was in a motorcycle accident, crushed his head on his. He was like a 12-year-old man. His thinking was like a little boy, even though he was 30-something. Yeah, so you can get that, or you can be born that way too.
Right.
But can people?
And God the righteous judge takes all that into account.
You have like people who their minds, they've been through such like deep trauma that their minds like fragment.
Yeah, but I what I would say to that, Mark, I get that. I don't see any evidence that the Word of God can't.
Yeah, I get.
Because
I'm
that
not
goes
saying
into
that.
their spirit. The word, nothing can stop the Word of God. Is my point.
Sure, but there are things that I'm not saying it can stop it, but there are definitely things that can.
Could there be stumbling
that
blocks
can
or roadblocks?
well, big stumbling
Hinder
blocks.
it.
Sure.
Or hindrances.
It's just a
Can someone be so, let's say, emotionally traumatized from a child by their father that they, well, it can work on two. How it worked for me is it made me desire God the Father, but others can run away. If their father was evil
or
bad.
even like
Yeah.
brainwashing. Like my atheist aunt, her identity is so wrapped up in that whole I'm woman, hear me roar, bra
Yeah.
burning stuff from the '60s, the second wave feminism, that she hates the Bible just because she thinks it's sexist.
That's
So there's an
crazy.
example of
That's
how,
an
how,
example of it.
how brainwashing trauma can stop somebody from accepting the Word of God.
Just the
that's-
trading
that's,
of-
that's good. That's good too. Yeah.
That's a pretty trippy verse, the 18:13.
Well, what we were saying is that
You know, one thing I want to point out on that verse, it says in verse 14, and the fruits that thy soul lusteth after are departing from thee. Now, in the previous two verses, it's listing all these things that their soul is lusting after. And since we're here in Revelation, we know all these things are going to, be destroyed by the Lord. So all the things they're, the mystery of Babylon, all the things they're lusting after, all those gold, silvers, and vessels of honor and everything, their soul is lusting after these things, and God has taken all these things away. And so partly, when you talked earlier about the people that are kind of have some problems with the brain, but if you didn't have a mental problem, it could be that you've been lusting after things of the earth, in the flesh so long that you're just conditioned to think that that's the truth rather than godliness.
Or even ideologies.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think, the souls of men probably be ideology. Look, the slaves would be, when you think of slaves, there's some physical, you got control of their body.
Right.
You force them into labor and stuff.
Control their mind too.
But this is the souls of men would have to do with their that's their inward part,
Right,
their
right.
minds
And we
you
know
can
that
control
Satan is the god of this world,
They
and
may
he
not
wants
be
to
under your
control.
thumb physically.
Yeah, but he can control people's minds in that if they're separated from Christ, they're not even in Christ. He has free reign to influence.
And you could be in slavery under somebody, but you could not. You could be aware of it and not be brainwashed and think this is a good thing.
That's
That'd
true.
be the difference between
Sure.
a slave and somebody
That's
who's
true.
the soul of a man that's captivated.
Yeah.
That's probably the common thing because
Sure.
that's his.
Yeah, that is.
You gotta get even crazier to actually convince that Stockholm syndrome, like
That's what that's
convince somebody that overpowering them and lording your power over them is a good thing.
Yeah,
I was just curious about the heart, some of these questions about the heart and the mind and the heart are always kind of mentioned together.
So
but also the spirit and the heart too.
that verse you brought up with all thy mind, heart, and spirit. Why do you think
Strength
that
and strength.
right? Why do you think that the mind and the heart is separated there, where in other places it's equated as the same?
Because there are places where the heart and the spirit, the mind would be a function of your soul, but your spirit is another part. Your spirit is another part of our makeup as man.
No, I'm talking about the mind and the heart, not the spirit.
Say that again.
That verse separate or list the mind and the heart as if they're separate things, within other verses, like for example Jeremiah one I brought up shows that it's equating it as the same. Or do you think the Jeremiah one, that rather we should evaluate the Jeremiah verse from the verse where, what verse is that? The heart, mind,
It's
and all that heart, mind.
see
soul,
that
and
I
strength.
think it's in Luke when he talks about the rich young ruler. Somebody asked him, look up, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy strength.
That's Luke 10:27.
Yeah, that was it. Luke 10:27. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy strength, and with all thy mind.
So it seems to be separating heart and mind as if they're not the same. So do you think that we
But
should?
so does Paul too.
Should we then evaluate the Jeremiah from these verses and say that it's not necessarily equating heart and mind, but in one case he's talking about how it didn't enter into his heart, and in the other case he's talking about how it didn't enter into his mind?
I would say that would be safe just because we have
Gotcha.
verses like this. Instead of where, that's a good point, Ron, where you use those to equate it like sometimes we do.
Right.
That-
If there's a
that
verse
he's
that's separated,
separating
right.
them
If
too.
it's separated later on, then you can use the process of critical thinking to say, oh, well then these must not be equated if later on. So instead of it being equating itself, instead he's talking about different things, different aspects of his godness, and that it's not entering into his heart, but you know what, it's also not even entering into his mind, either way. So
Sure,
when he says that in Jeremiah about it not entering into his heart, not entering into his mind, if those are separate things, what's the difference between something entering into your heart versus something entering into your
And
mind?
then you have the Apostle Paul in Philippians 3, he says, and that circumcision which is of the heart in the spirit. That's Philippians chapter 3.
Well, wait.
Of
So
the
wait.
heart, circumcision of the heart.
Yeah,
In
of
the
the heart, in the spirit, and what are we
Spirit.
calling the spirit the mind? You said.
I don't think
No.
so.
No.
What is the soul the mind?
No.
I would say of these two, the mind would be a function of the soul, because the spirit is simply, spirit is what gives us life.
Okay.
It's the connection to the spirit. The spirit gives life. So check this out, Mark. Man became a living soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spirit is the life from God. God breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life, right? And man became a living soul. So check this out. God made his body, God breathed into him the breath of life. That was his spirit. And in that body, when God breathed into the man's spirit, he became a living soul. The soul arose out of that.
And the Holy Spirit goes into our hearts, as according to 2 Corinthians 1. Giving us the earnest of the Spirit in our hearts, or is that just the earnest of the Spirit, not the actual Spirit?
Well, the earnest of the spirit would be that down payment, what I would say.
Gotcha. And that's being in our hearts because we reckon it. That's what that's talking about.
I actually think when he talks about in the heart, it just means like the heart of the earth, right in our inward, in our inward,
gotcha.
inside. Yeah.
So what about the distinguishing mind, those Jeremiah verses when God says it didn't come into his mind, it didn't come into his heart? How are those different? How is something going into one's heart versus something going into one's mind different? Or is he saying that it went into his mind and his mind is in his heart, and therefore is that maybe what's going on?
That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Hey, so where this
process
is
which is inside, yeah.
where this is coming from, and my question is, this guy, the same guy who was talking about the hybrid beings that Satan's made, he was talking about that. This is all some weird stuff, and when I'm like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. That's why I'm bringing it up to you guys. He was saying that he thinks that the subconscious is like a component, the heart and the subconscious are like the same thing. And that's why you have heart, spirit, and soul. And guys talk about, like, they talk about conscious mind and subconscious mind and unconscious mind in these, like, psychoanalytic guys.
It's all Jungian, right?
The union between the three.
I was
is
talking
what
about
he was saying.
Jung, that he's the one who coined all that conscious and unconscious stuff, right?
Oh, Jung, yeah. Jung did. But that was what he said. I thought I would bring it up to you. I don't know if it's, I'm just checking it with you guys, so we check it with the word and see.
It could be, I mean, the word doesn't use it like that, right? But he does talk about a conscience. Yeah, a conscience is in there too. I'd say the equivalent to the heart would be the inward man or the inner man, which is made up. It would be all of that: the spirit, the soul, which includes our conscience, subconscious, all those inner parts.
So the heart is the
God
inward
doesn't
part.
I get
deal with all those component parts to get us saved. You just need to deal with the package that's called the soul.
Yeah, I got that, but you said it's all the all the inner things, but Brian's saying in Jeremiah they're distinguishing between
That's what
the two.
That's what I keep trying to get to. It seems like what we're saying. It's more like what he's saying is the mind is in the heart, and that's why he says it didn't enter into my heart, the inward parts of me, where my mind is contained.
Yeah, and Paul talks about the spirit of your mind too, right? He talks about
So like it's kind of like let's say you're looking for let's say you're looking for like a tool, right? And you say like it wasn't even in my toolbox, or you could say it wasn't even in my house, right? It's kind of like that. It's like the house is the heart in the Jeremiah thing, and the mind is the toolbox.
Wait, is the heart in the mind, or is
No,
the
mind
in
is in the heart.
Where,
So
what
the
is it,
heart,
Jeremiah what?
the heart basically is Jeremiah 19 verses.
the heart would be the housing.
The housing of the mind. So the heart, like Ronis keeps saying, the heart is these inward parts. It's the parts inside, within the flesh.
It's like
The
your
soul,
inward man.
the soul,
And
the
within
spirit,
this inward man, there's all these.
the soul, the spirit,
components.
the heart, and the mind are all within our flesh, right? It's like
It's all inside.
it's all inside. That's the inner man.
Inner man.
The inner man.
Yeah.
So the inner man is the heart, essentially, right?
It's the. Let me just say like this: it's the part of us that's not physical.
It's more of a general term, right? Like if you say like you're saying the heart of the earth or the heart of the matter. That's what the word
The
heart.
of
It
the
means
matter. Let's get right
down to the inward part, not the exterior, right?
Right. It's the opposite of
It's
the
the
exterior.
interior, basically. The
Paul-
human interior.
In Romans 1, though, he's saying, vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened.
Right. So the inward parts of them were darkened because of their foolish imaginations or vain imaginations.
The way they were,
The
their
inner
thinking
man.
process led them
To have their inner man be polluted.
Their thinking polluted the rest of them.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
that's really what it is. Because we get things
Because
from
they
the
were going
outside
after-
stimuli, which affects our brain and our soul.
Well, they were ran by their sinful flesh, right?
Right.
When you run by your sinful flesh, it brings these sinful thoughts. These sinful thoughts begin to infiltrate into your inner man and get polluted. Yeah,
Right.
that's what was happening. Yeah,
It pollutes.
that's why it says, became vain in their imagination, and their foolish heart was darkened. And then it says he gave them up to vile affections and all this. They started polluting themselves from their flesh to their thinking so it starts outwardly and it went inwardly.
Right. It's
And,
like a
and
snowball.
the mind is kind of like would you say so like for example in Philippians 4:7 where it says, keep your hearts and minds through Jesus Christ, would you say like the heart, and so if we're going to kind of like from how we're looking at this, we could say, we could define this by saying, shall keep your inner man and your thinking through Christ Jesus.
Yeah.
Is that kind of a way to say it?
Yeah.
That the heart is kind of synonymous with the inner man and the mind is synonymous with the thinking.
Thinking, yeah.
And the Word of God will guard those from those other things we just talked about, those polluting thoughts in the mind.
You know, when we think about another component of Philippians 4:7 is, you know, when we talk about head knowledge and heart knowledge, that type of thing.
Yeah.
One is just, you know the facts, but they're not real in your experience. It's kind of that. Almost like where your affection is where your heart is, right? Your affection.
Right.
The things that move you.
Move you,
'Cause-
motivate you.
Yeah. It's like the people say, I bet for they bet on their team. It's like, I'm making this bet because I'm making this bet from my heart, not from my head. My head tells me it's stupid because
Yeah.
my team gonna get blown out by Packers.
Right.
But my heart is with the Bears, so I'm gonna go with them. It's that. Their affection is kind of where the heart, but their mind is their logical part go. You know, it's like having the knowledge, but having it work.
That's what I was saying about your.
It's your
your
seat.
heart
It is your
is
seat
your-
of affection. It is. Your affection sets your affection.
Like you're reacting with keeping your heart soft. You're reacting with your heart, and not your mind's not getting in the way.
Well, think about it. The whole point of sanctification is for your inner man, right? It has nothing to do with your flesh per se. Although the flesh can be, how you operate in your flesh can be changed by your inner man. But the focus is to deal with the inner man, not deal with the flesh. Flesh is dying. Flesh is dealt with by the rapture,
Right. The
and
focus
resurrection.
is to deal with the inward.
Right. So when you want to keep your heart soft, you want to keep that inner man soft. You want to have that inner man operating correctly, so sanctification wise,
Because
right?
that's where the place where the Spirit of God works.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So one more thing about what Mark brought up though, and then I brought the Jeremiah one. I wanted to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
So when God says it didn't enter into his heart, God only has an inner man, right? He doesn't have an outer man. He's not.
Well, he had what we would say in other words, he doesn't have an outward flesh.
Outward flesh.
He doesn't have an outward flesh. He doesn't have a physical, but his body is not physical. He doesn't have flesh. He
Right.
doesn't have flesh.
Right.
He's,
So,
he would in essence just be what our
So
inner
when
man
he says
would
it
look
didn't enter into my heart, he's saying it didn't enter into who I am.
like. Yeah.
And then he says it didn't enter into my mind, he's saying it didn't enter into my
His
thinking.
thinking process. Right?
Cool.